All right. This is a recording of me doing a demonstration of three different types of brushwork. One will be a graded wash, another is called dry brush, and a third is wet into wet, wet and wet. The graded wash is a fun one. It involves getting a little bit more water. It involves painting a section of your paper with clear water, horizontal strokes. I'm going to go down to about here, about 2/3 of the way down. Okay, so it's all wet and pretty shiny. And then I'll take a nice brush. I'm using kind of a squirrel mop brush, tipping it into some blue, pretty good strong ultramarine, maybe a little bit of cerulean. But you want to get a lot of color on the brush. Okay, so the graded wash, involves putting on some good strong color at the top, then adding water, just water, dipping into another thing of water, dipping into water again, clean water, dipping into water again, and each successive line, the blue gets lighter. Now, right now you see those streaks, and you've got a little shine from my light. But I'm gonna just turn the page this way, and bang it a little bit, and I can even add a little bit more blue at the top. All right. And as I tilt it, tip it, I get what's called a graded wash. That is, I'm getting a shine from my light. It's going from a dark, strong color at the top and gradually getting lighter toward the bottom. So that's the graded wash. Great for skies. You want to put a mountain in that purple, grayish blues that can slide down to your tree line. So I'm going to put this aside. That's the graded wash. And I'll let it dry at an angle. Okay. Now the dry brush is a very different technique. I'm going to mop up my puddles of water here. The dry brush is kind of like it sounds. You take a brush. I'm going to dip it directly into some paint. And as I put it on the paper, you can see that it creates this sort of scratchy lines as the paint hits the top parts of the paper and then jumps and has this kind of raggedy look. Now, I like this. Now I'm dipping directly into some cerulean blue. I'm going to mix a little bit of this. This is less. Now there's some dry brush right out there. I'm going to create a sense of leaves, like a tree, with the light coming from this side. So this side of the tree is a little bit darker, maybe the bottom edge of the tree. And that tree is made up of dry brush. You can see the way that you get those white speckles coming up in. I can add a little hint of a trunk down here. I might throw a little line out here. And maybe a little sense of a tree with a little bit of shadow down there. Now, another place to use your dry brush is also often in grasses. You take some raw sienna, just pure raw sienna. I'm just gonna pull it up. Watch this. See how it makes that scratchy look? Side of my brush. Okay, I'll get a little bit of burnt sienna. Let's say I want to have some grasses in front of these. And again, I'm creating this kind of ragged look. I don't think you can do a whole painting using dry brush. It gets a little stiff looking. So I might put a couple lines like this to kind of soften that bottom edge. But there you've got two different ways of creating texture, or two different, a tree and grasses with a texture. You can also use the dry brush. Let me find another brush here. Whew, boy, paints aren't. Dry brush can be at the edges of a rock. Take a little bit of. So you can see. So if this is a rock at the edge of a lake or something, you can see that it's got the sort of light hitting off the front face of it. And that's another time the dry brush works pretty well. I mean, you can find all kinds of places to use dry brush. All right, and the third technique is wet into wet. And as the name sounds, clean off my palette here. And I'm going to take some water at about the horizon line. This is very much like the graded wash, but you'll see it's slightly different. And I am just soaking the bottom half of this piece of paper with water. Wow, I see that shine coming in pretty good here. If I tip it up, I lose that sheen. Let's see if I can find something to put under there. Okay. Here we go. All right, now I'm going to take a little bit of okay, you can see this, the colors just blurring together there. And what I'm doing is creating a little sense of Get a little yellow going here. Get a little green going around here. Oh boy. Wet into wet. Pretty strong color down here. Now I forgot, because I was moving kind of quickly, I forgot to get a little bit of, okay, this is going to be a little bit of reflection. All right. Okay, I got a rock here. And then its reflection. Keep a little edge right there. Let's say here's another rock back here. And its reflection is going to be down into the water. All right, I'm trying to lose that little bit of white right here, but that's all right. And I'll throw a little bit of, this is still wet? Yeah, I guess so. And I'll throw a little bit of a sky tone into this wet and wet. And now I'm going to take my flat brush and I'm going to lift out some color. Take it, dip it into water, and lift out some color right there. Maybe down here near the rock. I'm creating a sense of reflection here. If I want, I can add a little bit of line in there. That kind of creates that look of water, perhaps, reflecting into the reflecting some sunlight coming across the water. So I thought, so this is the wet in wet, and we've done a dry brush. And here's a small painting I did just before I got started. And this is sort of combining all three. I've got a blended wash, a graded wash up at the top, a little bit of a graded wash in the hills. I've got dry brush to trees with some scratch marks. You can see where I've scratched out the trunks while the paint was still wet. And here's, I put in some color, maybe another scratch mark over here. And then so graded wash, dry brush in the trees, and then the wet in wet to create a feeling of the edge of a pond or something like that. I would invite you to you don't have to copy my picture, but I invite you to maybe try using these 3 different ways of painting. You know, the dry brush. I don't have to go over all 3, but give it a try, and always have a little piece of extra paper where you can practice your strokes before you put them on what might be a little landscape that you might create, or some sort of scene. So it's just an exercise. I want you to try the 3 different types of ways of applying paint: graded wash, dry brush, and wet and wet. All right, so we'll let that go there, and good luck.